Yo, what's going on, everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know who it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression podcast, brought to you by Switchy Rocks for Rock and Metal Thrive. Hey, everybody. This is a very, very, very special episode. And why? It's because we have a returner coming back to the show. Back in November, we talked to Sahaj from the band Ra, all about their brand new single, Intercorrupted, which came out at the time. And now the album Intercorrupted is coming out on Friday, March 19th. And are we talking about the album? You bet. Are we also talking about a lot of other things in music that you're going to want to know about? You bet. Because every time I talk to Sahaj, I swear to God, there's like 10 different light bulbs that go off my head, 10 different like mind-blowing things that are said that just make me realize certain things about music in a way I never thought before. Sahaj is absolutely incredible, and I hope you guys like this episode. So are you ready? Let's go! Yeah! Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression podcast, we have yet another returner to the show because the brand new album, Intercorrupted by the band Ra, is coming out on Friday, March 19th. I hope I got that right because, sometimes days go wrong in my head, getting the okay from Sahaj, so I'm happy about that. So please welcome back to the show, Sahaj from Ra. So Sahaj, welcome back, man.
Hey, dude. Good to see you again, and I'm excited to be back. We had an in-depth convo last time, so hopefully this one's just as good.
Well, I mean, before we even started out on this, we were talking for like 5-6 minutes, and it was already going to get to that super in-depth point. So I'm totally super excited for that, especially with the fact that, the brand new album, Intercorrupted, almost messed that up, comes out on March 19th. And I know you're also doing a virtual concert that same night as well. So you're really making this the biggest release possible that you can, of course, during the time of COVID-19, during the pandemic. So I'm excited for this one, man. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I almost feel like the virtual concert, like, how people had like CD release parties back in the day. Like this is better, I think. I think this is more effective than having a CD release party in some, in your hometown with a few hundred people and no one else gets to see it. I think this is actually more awesome. I think everybody who wants to come and check this out can come check it out. And, hopefully they'll get to see, all the classic Raw songs, a couple new ones from the new album and stuff like that. But I think the excitement of seeing us in a high production situation with lots of lights and different cameras and all that stuff, I don't know. It just feels very, very appropriate for the release of this record.
I think that's definitely a key point you hit on as well, where we're talking about the live performance, but though it's virtual, compared to those like CD releases or album release parties with a couple hundred people, where there's going to be a potential for a lot more people to show up at this, to take part in this, and to really enjoy it. However, one other thing that you hit on was you're talking about high production, a lot of lights, a lot of different cameras as well. You're trying to make this more of an experience, more of this full-on, production to the point where people are going to come watch this and they're definitely going to get what they want out of it. Definitely feel like they're at a show. Definitely feel that grand experience from the comfort of their own homes, which of course we would all rather see you live, be packed in a room together, having a great time. But if we have to make do with what we have to make do now, and hopefully 6 months we're able to pack into a room and see you play live, we'll definitely be watching and listening to this live performance.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I got to plug where we did it because it's so great. I mean, Sweetwater Sound is the place everybody buys all their music, sweetwater.com and all that stuff. So people buys all their music gear and all their technology from Sweetwater, but they don't realize that the facility, because I live here in Indiana, in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I moved here from LA last year. But the facility is enormous. They have a $7 million recording studio with 3 different rooms in it. They have these massive theaters with stages and all this special stuff, massive amounts of video gear, massive amounts of, we have a 30 by 20 wall, video LED wall that we're using. It's just absolutely crazy, the level of production that we're going to have on Friday. And the generosity of a place like Sweetwater, because, the thing that's great about Sweetwater is that they have, they make so much money on the retail side that they can they don't really care that much about making money off of the studio in the traditional way. They want to make money, but they're more interested in building the value and the credibility and the reputation. And one of the things that they realize is with their facilities, they can do these virtual concerts and or things like them in the future at a very high level. I mean, places in LA, if I were still in LA and I tried to do what we did at Sweetwater, it probably would have cost $50,000. And, the fact that they basically did it on spec with us is, unbelievable. And, something that no one, it's not something that everyone's going to get, because obviously I live here and I know the people there, but it's one of those things that in the name of sort of getting the word out and getting this experience out in the open, I think they did a really, really ridiculously good job with this. I can't wait for people to see it. It looks like $1 zillion.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing this now as well, the way you're talking about, especially with this giant video wall in the back. That just sounds absolutely incredible, especially because I've mentioned this a lot of times on the podcast with other bands as well. We're talking about these live performances, live shows virtually, just because, of course, that's what we had to do for the past year, and seeing how different bands and different groups have evolved from the beginning, because like the first one was on St. Patrick's Day 2020 when all of a sudden Dropkick Murphys did a live show, and it was just, I think they had like 1 or 2 cameras, and it was just their whole entire set, whatever it was going to be, that was it. But as time has gone on, I've seen other bands start to build up certain things, put stories behind their live performances virtually as well, just add so much more to them. So you're starting to see how bands are really trying to turn this around and really make this special for the audience. So it's something like, you're watching a movie, but also watching a live show at the same time as well, because you can't be there in front of the band with the crowd. If you're like me, smashing into people left and right because you can't get out of the mosh pit, but that's what I love to do anyway, so I'm going to stick with it. However, I love the fact that you're doing it with Sweetwater as well, because, again, like you said, they're very big in the retail space, but they're going to be also working within, the more music production space as well, getting the studio time as well, but also they're just there to have fun with it. They're there to promote music. They're there to just help artists grow, where all of a sudden, you're focusing all the money on the retail side, but now you got this other space as well that's going to be so useful for so many artists, and the guys, and you're taking advantage of the fact that you have this great opportunity to make this incredible live performance virtually. So why not do it?
Yeah. No, it's definitely a special relationship, and something that I hope other bands that I work with, some of my bigger friends, my bigger bands, take advantage of it, because it's something that they would be super, super stoked to have that level of support.
I think they might be watching that live performance on Friday night, and then all of a sudden afterwards, they're going to be texting you asking if they can get in on that.
Yeah, no, I've already shown them the stage and stuff like that. So they're all, they're aware that it's certain bands are already thinking it through.
Oh man, and you're going to be it's like and you're going to be the first one there.
Well, we're not the first one to do something. Actually, We Came as Romans did one.
Out of Sweetwater?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was called Band-Aid or something like that they did. And they did one, came out a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. Theirs was pretty cool too. I mean, I have to say it looked pretty cool. Different kind of show than ours, but definitely it looked amazing.
Well, I'm going to have to go back and look that up, just because I completely missed out on that one. Man, yeah. Now I'm feeling like I really missed out. Dang. Oh, well, what you going to do about it?
Yeah, it's all good.
I could probably find it somewhere, and just all of a sudden, like, go up on YouTube. If someone's probably got, every single song up there kind of cut together, and I can kind of piece it together, or can find it live online somewhere. I think
have a couple of songs just like on their YouTube channel, just like a couple of songs. So I think you can definitely check it out.
And I really want to as well, just due to the fact that I was supposed to go and see them before the whole entire pandemic hit as well, because they were doing the To Plant a Seed tour. I think it was the last time they're going to play the album in full, especially because the loss of Kyle Pavone, they're going to end up moving forward, but not replacing him, which I think is a smart move.
Right.
But it was my first time seeing We Came as Romans, and that's their breakthrough. I'm like, I want to see him play it. However, I also want to see him play some of my other favorite songs. But you know what? I got to keep waiting. And I'm just sitting here still with that ticket in my nightstand drawer right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, they did it. I think it came out a month or so ago. But yeah, very good. But yeah, so, we're moving on to getting into the phase where we're going to start focusing on getting the release out. Did you get a copy of the album early or no?
I unfortunately was not able to.
All right. Well, if I had known, I would have sent you one. That's the first thing. So at the end of this conversation, I will link you to the album so you can actually hear the album. But But the other thing is, there are features on the record. So one of the features on the record is Dustin Bates from Starset. So he and I do a song. And then the other feature on the album is Lajon Witherspoon, me and from Sevendust. We do a song together too. So those two features on the record are really, it was super like satisfying for me personally. That they both, it's I didn't plan it this way, but it came to me at a certain point that I realized that like Sevendust was such a massive inspiration for me when we were coming up as a band. So it's like I got to work with a guy that sort of was part of the DNA of what Raw became. And then I write a lot of songs with Starset. I have 6 songs so far, maybe a couple more on the next album, so maybe 8 or 9 total. And to have a guy on the record who my DNA helped create, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's sort of cool to have respect for the people that made us who we are. And then to have, this guy on the record who's, massively successful at the moment, but also something that I helped create, and it feels really, really good. There's a really good sort of honest, hopeful, healing energy in this record. Like it's really what the whole album is about. But there's also a lot of sort of Zen stick hitting you in the head, kind of like trying to get you to think about stuff moments. And then there are a couple songs about girls, but but overall it's trying to fix something. I'm not even sure what it's trying to fix. I want to say people, but it's really not. It's just trying to fix broken energy, and the album for me, we've put out 2 songs. We have Intercorrupted and we have Jezebel. And, Intercorrupted was sort of like a mishmash of things that are very raw-ish and then sort of just designed to make people recognize the band again. And then Jezebel was sort of an album track, still really hooky, but it's almost 5 minutes long. It's just like this crazy long song. And it's designed sort of to exercise my progressive metal side, but also it ended up being my Roxanne, my Police Roxanne, because, as I was writing the song, I realized what I wanted to do was take these djenty metal parts and then put these policey things, these policey melodies over it and policey guitar parts and have fun with it. And I think, they're little things. I mean, one of the things for people who know the band, there's a ton of Easter eggs. Like, I watch all these Marvel TV shows and I watch all the Marvel movies. So I'm looking for, I realize that Easter eggs are a thing now. So it's like, I put all these Easter eggs in this album. There's a million references to other songs. There's a million references, in Jezebel, even there's a reference to a song called Scorn. So, and Mixie from Stitched Apart does a vocal part in it. She does the spoken word part of the song. And there's just some really cool, Easter eggy type things that if you know the band really well, it's cool. But then I tried to make the record just good enough so that if you've never heard of us before, you're still going to like it, So there's a lot of soul and passion that went into making this record, but a lot of it was, in the traditional raw way, it's not very heady. It's not very intellectual on purpose, even though the lyrics might come off that way. But a lot of it is sort of like it's channeled more than it's written, if that makes any sense. And I work with so many bands where it is written and not channeled. I spend a lot of time carving out ideas for other artists. So when I get to do the raw stuff, it's all about sort of channeling whatever's coming out and then harnessing it into a song,
Oh, absolutely. One thing you brought up with Jezebel, though, was, and I was going to ask you this question, but you just answered it right out in front there, because when I was listening to your vocals, like the first vocalist that came to mind and kind of like, okay, what is this kind of like the flow and everything reminded me of was Sting from the Police. And you're calling it your Roxanne mode. I'm just sitting here thinking, oh my God, you answered my question before I even asked it. Like this is freaking me out at times. But when I listen to Jezebel, because in preparation for this, I probably listened to that track maybe 20, 25 times because I just wanted to really just take it in and enjoy it. From the first moment I listened to it, because with that instrumentation, it's got that heavier, fast-paced style to it, but it's not, super duper heavy, super duper in your face. It's kind of got this nice flow to it with a faster pace, harder hitting style. But then you listen to your vocals, the way they contrast against that pacing, against that sound as well, with a little bit more of a lighter flair, a little bit more of a drawn out flair, kind of like Sting from the Police. I was just sitting here and I was just in awe of that whole entire contrast and how it just made both parts of those songs stand out.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to enough music to know that, you know, people's definition of heavy sometimes can be a little bit of a pigeonhole, because if you want to be traditionally heavy, you want a traditional sort of breakdowny part with a traditional vocal over it, I think that's going to be boring to listen to over time. I think it might be cool in the moment, but I think over time it won't survive. Whereas, like, if you take two things that traditionally don't live together, then there's subtlety and nuance that you have to decipher in order for it to make sense. And I like that in that particular song, it starts out pretty brutal. I mean, it's, you know, that first crunch of you know, chugging drop tune to A, and it's single note gent craziness, but then it literally goes into oohs and ahs. And then the first melody is a police melody. I mean, you know, it wasn't on purpose. The side story to this is, over the summer, I started working with a little bit with Nothing More, that band. And we had written our song together, and I made a gibberish vocal, but when it got to the chorus, I actually sang the end line was my Jezebel. And they liked the song, and we messed with it a little bit, but they were going to change the lyric anyway. So I was like, oh, I really like that Jezebel lyric, so I'm going to try and use it, write a song around that. And then when I came up with Jezebel, I just immediately was like, oh, that's Roxanne. You know, it's the same thing. So I was like, oh, it's in that universe. So that just sort of immediately carved the song in a direction and gave it a flair. And then once I realized that Jezebel's sort of a whore and the whole thing and the story, and, you know, Roxanne's a prostitute in Roxanne. But I remember the song Scorn, the old Raw song, where I do a weird girl voice and I talk about how, you know, I'm not in love with you anymore and I'm moving on with my life and all this stuff, like this girl. So I had Mixie do exactly the same line in the middle of the song as an Easter egg for the people who know the old song. And everybody's, you know, been pretty happy with that moment. But there's like stuff like that all the time. Like, I'm just trying to make things feel connected but disconnected, and then writing really poppy songs. The song I did with Lajon is a song called Nobody Loves You. And when I was working on it, I have a lot of crazy inspirations for this record. One of my passions is actually listening to top 40 music. So there are really big influences from top 40 stuff that I listen to that are on this album. I mean, there's stuff from Juice WRLD that's like almost ripped off exactly. I stole something from a Mac Miller song. I have like little moments of Billie Eilish and things. No one's ever going to know which parts these are. But in that Nobody Loves You song, it's very poppy. It has like an urban flavor, and that's the one I do with Lajon. There's all this stuff, and then when somebody, you know, some of the people that have gotten the album early have made comments, and somebody came back to me and they said, yeah, you know, at first I thought it didn't make sense, but then I was like, I sort of feel like I've heard you do this before. And then I sort of let the cat out of the bag. I said, well, if you have our B-sides album, there's a song called Busted, which I did in 1998. Which is sort of the same thing. It's like a girl who does you wrong, and it's over an urban beat, and it has a rock chorus, and it's almost the same thing. It has like rap elements in it. But, you know, I was like, people, because what I was aware of is that certain people who are fans of the band have preconceived notions of what the band is because of Do You Call My Name? So they think of that song and they immediately think, oh, that's all they sound like. You know, it's just Arabic flavored, blah, blah, blah. But our catalog is actually super diverse and weird and has like a lot of weird pop songs. I mean, on Critical Mass, I always tell this to people and they never realize it until they go back and listen. But I have a song about jerking off to Katy Perry on that album. So there's no rhyme or reason or limit to what we will talk about. And, you know, it's fun for me to make those kinds of songs. But anyway, this Nobody Loves You song for me, it's one of my favorite songs on the album, having LJ on it, him singing like a pop singer. It's just so much fun.
See, I'm going to be very curious to see how that song all plays out as well. And this is the biggest reason, is not with what you're talking about with having more of a pop flavor to it, but it's going to be with Lajon's feature on it and how his vocal set is going to contrast against your vocal set as well, because with your vocal set, from what I've heard from the past couple of songs, from the other songs, well, kind of has a little more of a smoother, lighter flair to it. Well, listening to Lajon's, especially off of their last album, kind of has this like a little bit of a deeper, but also kind of still has that smoothness to it at the exact same time as well. So that smoothness can easily connect it, but just the overall tone, I'd be very curious to see how they contrast against each other and how they both maximize each other's vocal sets.
Yeah, I think, even with the song with Dustin and the song with Lajon, I had to decide whether I would do the first verse and have them come in second, or have them come first and have me come in second. And I sort of realized that because I'm writing these songs in my wheelhouse and I'm so comfortable and I'm so completely in my element in those both of those songs, that I felt like it was important to have them go first, because there's always going to be a little bit of the fish out of water with these guys doing things that they're not necessarily used to doing. And I think it works perfectly, because they both have, Dustin sings one way, Lajon sings a different way. They're totally different kinds of singers, but they're both very comfortable in their thing. And with Lajon, since I'm working on his solo record, it was a lot of bringing what we've been doing in his solo record onto this track. And so it was a little bit less of a trick. It wasn't like I had to push him hard to get into the zone on this song, but it is out of character for what people are used to with him. Although by the time it gets to the chorus, it just sounds like Elgin. So I think there's a lot of really, really cool things. But yeah, having those guys go first, I think, was really important in setting these songs up, because everybody's, the raw stuff is so vocal centric that having another tone over the music really does change the feel. So I wanted people to feel different and then familiar, as opposed to familiar and then different. I don't know. It didn't seem to make sense that way.
And one of the things that just stuck out to me was the fact that you're going to have them go first and then you come in second instead of the other way around, because in most of the songs around today, whether it's rock, metal, anything, you're looking at these featured vocalists and it's always whoever the band is, their main vocalist or their frontman or frontwoman is always going first, and then maybe you'll have the feature come in for the second verse. Maybe you won't have that feature come into like the bridge or maybe even in the breakdown as well. Sometimes you wait that long and it's kind of expected. However, if you're going to go a completely different route and have Dustin go first on these, what's going to end up happening is people are going to listen to him and they're going to hear that right away, and all of a sudden they're going to be entrenched in that song because they're hearing something that's they're not expecting off of that, especially with that track that you're talking about with Lajon as well. I'm very curious to see what that's going to be like, just because, I know what Lajon has with Sevendust, have no idea what to expect from his solo album as well, but I know you do because you're working on it, so we'll see where that all comes forward, but I'm curious to see how you end up pushing him to really make this song just stand out as something that, I'm pretty sure fans are going to sit there and when they see the track list, when they see the album come out, that's going to be a song that they immediately go to.
Yeah, and I think that having them go first also sort of serves a business purpose, right? Because if you're a fan of Starset, if you're a fan of Sevendust, and you see an alert or something comes up and it says that you have this feature with this other person, and you don't know the other person, then you tune into the song. It's sort of a relief that the person you want to hear is first, right? Because then it brings you in. And then the other part of it, I think personally, is that for my fans, for the raw fans, they want to hear the other person sing first too, because they want to get to me, as opposed to like, if I start singing, they're just already in and whatever, but they want to see what they do. And then they want to hear me do it and see what the difference is. So I think it really works both ways. And this is an exciting time. There's an exciting feeling of, watching, here's the thing, like watching the monthly listeners number on Spotify go up. It's a weird thing. We've only put out 2 songs. We've gone up 30,000 monthly listeners, but there's an interesting sort of dynamic on how the new universe of music works, right? Monthly listeners wasn't a thing when I was doing this last record. Nobody knew what that was. So it's so interesting that you can watch things sort of bloom in real time and see how it all sort of factors together in terms of creating an imprint into the music industry. And also, the bigger your imprint, you start seeing things happen. Things, the way people react to you, it seems to be more. There's a little bit more of a respect level that starts happening when somebody's is sort of on a cycle where things are working well. You know what I mean? So that I don't know, that we're getting over the hump of the band having the worst name in the world as far as algorithms are concerned. So that's slowly starting to get better, because that's actually been our biggest challenge for the last 3 or 4 months is you can't search Ra. You can't ask Alexa to play Ra. You can't, there's a million things that you just can't do because of the name. So we're having an actual, it's slowly getting better, and people are slowly finding the band, whether it's through the website or whether it's through Facebook or whatever it is. But it's a challenge. You can't go to Spotify and put in Ra. We don't come up. You can't,
No,
it's very hard.
I was gonna say you can't, because right now if I type in Ra on Spotify, the top result artist that comes up is Rammstein.
Right, and that's because you've searched Rammstein before. So the thing is it only bases it. It's individual. If you were a rap fan and you had Ra the Rugged Man as your last 5 searches, then that's what would come up. Or if it was Rage Against the Machine, that would come up first.
Yeah, because I'm taking a look at it, it's like, what do I have after Rammstein? And like just taking a look overall. Next is Rage Against the Machine, and then it's Radiohead, and then artists that I've never even heard of following that. Like, I'm not even finding Ra even on there, and I just typed in your full name. So even when it comes to trying to find you guys on Spotify, I always just do what you told me to do the last time. Just search up Intercorrupted, because it was the word that you guys came up with, so no one else is going to have it.
Yeah, so now, and that's also why I named the album that. So the record is, the single is Intercorrupted, the album is Intercorrupted. So if anybody's searching Intercorrupted, that's the only thing you're going to find, I think. I think that's still true. But
let's take a look. Yeah, I just turned Intercorrupted, top result, of course, is the song. Otherwise, it's the only, I'm seeing other things that have like something that might be similar in terms of name, but it's a different language as well. But when you just search up Intercorrupted, the only thing you're going to find on Spotify at this current moment is the single. However, when you search up Intercorrupted on March 19th and afterwards, you're going to find the album as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's all craziness. It's all good. But yeah, I mean, from a music industry standpoint, it's nice to feel sort of a widening of our reach. And it's slow, and it's person by person, but I think it was one of my friends who does data analysis for a record company was telling me that we have one of the stats that's really good for Ra is that we have a 33% or 30% click rate on follows in Spotify, meaning that 1 in 3 people who go to our Spotify channel actually follow us, which is supposedly an insanely high number. People say that 10% is a great number. So to have 30% of the people who come to your page click follow apparently is a really cool thing. So obviously for me, I'm just like, whatever, like I just want more people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We have the people who like the band. I mean, not everybody loves the band, but the people who like the band are very passionate about it. And that's something that we take very personally, and we really try and be respectful of and really put a lot into making the album.
Yeah, and I've seen over time as well, from when the first single released with Intercorrupted and when Jezebel released as well, I've seen certain things pop up on social media, not just from your guys' fan pages as well, or your guys' social media accounts, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is. Certain fan groups, especially on Facebook, seen a couple of times all of a sudden, hey, check out this track. In the past couple of months, all of a sudden I'm seeing Jezebel come across, seeing Intercorrupted come across. I'm sitting here thinking, people are finally starting to notice. Thank God.
No, it's cool. It's definitely cool. And we're getting sort of cross-pollination too from other like groups of people that are following other bands that have now, like, one person on the Shinedown page posted something, so now we get all these people that are like, oh, I found you on the Shinedown page. You know what I mean? Like, there's stuff like that happening. So that, it's growing. It's just growing slowly because it's hard to search.
Yeah, but one thing too is especially, one thing that I'm gonna end up planning on doing is making sure when this album comes out on March 19th, go to the couple of groups that I'm in, and yes, tell everyone, hey, go check out the new album Intercorrupted. But also, because I know how convenience works, I know people don't want to have to search this up. I'm just gonna put a Spotify link in there. They can click on it, and all of a sudden, boom, you're right there. It makes the easiest sense in the world. I mean, heck, for everyone that's going to be watching or listening to this podcast, everything when it comes to finding Raw, when it comes to finding Intercorrupted, when it comes out, you just have to look at the links in the description. I'm going to have everything there for you.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And I think, we encourage people to follow us on Spotify too, because that helps the algorithm. So if you follow us, that gives us you don't have to search quite as hard to find it again.
Yeah, and for other people, if you, for some reason, don't follow them, which you should, you can always just search up the word Intercorrupted, and they're going to be the only thing that shows up.
Yeah, or you can just go to rawband.net, and we have all the links there for songs, for everything. So you can just jump right from there. That's like a portal to go to everything.
We're just doing the whole entire plug section right in the middle of this podcast.
Getting that handled.
Hey, get it handled before, we wait till the end and all of a sudden, you might forget about it. I don't think I've ever forgotten about it at this point, but you know what? Doesn't hurt to just sprinkle it in there every now and again. So remember, everybody, Intercorrupted comes out on March 19th. And if it's before March 19th, pre-save it, pre-order it, do whatever you got to do. But when it comes out on March 19th, listen to it again. Links in the description for the podcast so you can find everything. And when it comes to Spotify, follow the band. Follow them. Makes it easier to find them and helps out the algorithm so that when we type in RA, they're one of the first things that comes up. No longer seeing Rammstein come up first or Rage Against the Machine come up first, even though they might still come up first for a lot of you. No, we want Raw to come up first.
Yeah, it works after a while. It definitely works. So yeah, I mean that's sort of the outline of what's happening with the record. There's a lot, sort of percolating as far as what we can do touring wise, who we can go out with. Hopefully, obviously because of the LJ connection, we're hopefully going out with Sevendust, maybe Sevendust Alter Bridge. If that happens, that'd be super cool. Maybe I'll try and talk Dustin into taking us out for a couple of weeks and do some Starset shows, whatever it is. But yeah, a lot of the bigger bands are they're getting pushed back and further. I was talking to Johnny Hawkins, Nothing More, the other day, and they're still seriously not talking about touring till 2022, which I thought was crazy. I was like, why wouldn't you want to get out in the fall? And I don't know. I think there's a lot of there are a lot of issues that have nothing to do with COVID at this point that have to do with just venues and stuff being backed up. So you're going to have, once people start actually opening up in September, October, and start actually playing shows, you're going to have months of bands that are just trying to make up dates. And it's going to be complicated, but I think there's still going to be room for us to do stuff, whether it's headlining or whatever it is, but we're going to find something to do for sure.
See, what you just brought up there was something that I'd been thinking about for quite a while, honestly, and it's kind of confirming what I was thinking of where, yeah, when venues open back up again, there have been a good number of venues that unfortunately have closed due to COVID-19, due to the pandemic, due to not being able to financially sustain themselves. Again, I can go into a whole nother rant about that, but I really don't want to go into a full rant on that. However, we're going to have less stages, and all of a sudden when bands are able to go out and tour, less stages, all these bands want to go out and tour or just make up dates that they originally had scheduled, and you're going to have a lot of bands, not that big of a supply of stages, so trying to get out there, trying to make sure you get that time on stage is going to be limited, so you're not necessarily sure if you're going to be able to get out there or not. Like what you just said with Nothing More, if they might not tour until 2022, just all based on stuff that isn't necessarily even related to COVID, if we're able to get back to it in September, October 2021, which right now it looks that way. However, for you guys, if you're able to get on a bill with Sevendust and Alter Bridge, that would be absolutely insane. I mean, because I've seen Sevendust once and I've seen Alter Bridge once, and both times, I think, yeah, for Alter Bridge, I just kind of sat there in awe watching Mark Tremonti play the guitar, because I'm like, I don't know how to play guitar, but then how do you do that? And then Sevendust was just fun as all hell.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that would be an incredibly satisfying show for a lot of the same people that like us. You know what I mean? Like the people that like Raw, I feel like Sevendust, like Alter Bridge. I think it's all the same sort of universe, even though styles might be different. But yeah, that would be sick. I mean, look, my intention is to sort of use and abuse all my friends and relationships in the music industry to make sure that, whatever we do is meaningful and it has a good reach. And, I'm even going to reach out and try to maybe reach out to Breaking Benjamin, try and hit up the, Zach Myers and Brent and Shinedown and hit up all the guys we used to tour with. I'll talk to Tyler from Theory. I want to play with all those dudes. We used to play with those guys 20 years ago. And, if we're doing enough, I would imagine that they'd be cool having us out with them. So we're trying to make it so that they don't have to do us a favor, that it actually makes sense and they just want us to be there, But yeah, I think there's a lot. I mean, I'm sort of bummed out that I didn't get you the album before this, because I really would have liked to talk to you about what you thought of the other songs, but we'll have to do that another time. But there's a lot of poetry on this record. There's a lot of stuff that just comes from the state of the world. I mean, our last podcast, we talked a lot about all of the psychological and mental sort of barriers that we're dealing with in a technological society that deals with information in an incredibly inefficient way. And the album has a lot of references to that. There's a song called "Let It Lie," where the saying is, if somebody's like, "Oh, that's messed up, man, just let it lie," meaning don't mess with it, just let it lie, leave it on the floor. But in the context of this song, I'm actually using lie in the truth manner. So let it lie, meaning let it lie to you, let it tell you a falsehood. And that's sort of what we do, right? We're all willing to let it lie in order to be able to make sure that we sustain whatever beliefs and dogmas and karmas that we're fighting with. The insane part of what people are willing to sacrifice in order to be right or wrong or whatever it is, that's the fiber of what this record is about. There's a lot of sort of like the insanity of living around. And then the other thing is sorry, I was just thinking about this just this morning, but there's a song on the album called "Blind to the Light," right? So in the reference to "Blind to the Light," I wrote the song, recorded the song, and then all of a sudden I had to figure out what it was about, because it was one of those things where it, like I said before, I channeled it more than I wrote it. And then I realized it was sort of like my song, my honoring Chris Cornell, the melody of it, the whole thing, his sort of poetry, his life, the way he died, the circumstances in which he died, and sort of a Chester Chris Cornell type thing. And I realized this line, "Blind to the Light," so it's a complete twist of what you think it is. It's like you're thinking by the title that you're blind to the light. That means the light is a good thing and you can't see the good thing. Like, that's the thing that everybody would assume. But really, I'm talking about it from a Chris Cornell perspective. And I think these guys, they suffered a lot because they couldn't deal with the limelight. They couldn't deal with being seen. So they want to be blind to the light. They want the light to be blind to them. So that's how I wrote these songs about, that particular song about how Chris Cornell and Chester, like, would they be alive today if they weren't famous, if they didn't have that constant sort of force of eyes on them all the time, or the spotlight on them all the time. So yeah, there's really cool stuff on the record that I'm proud of in terms of its meaning and how it applies to like the world today. But you mentioned the COVID thing too, and there's a lot of sort of like both sides of the coin things, but I think ultimately the message of the record is just to be hopeful and to understand that the second you go too far in any direction, you've lost your leverage, and that's the that's always been the raw message, to be honest, from the very beginning. But even now, I feel like it's way more palpable on this record.
And also potentially way more powerful as well, given what we have just gone through over the past year. And talking about that "Blind to the Light" song, what you're talking about, taking it from a perception of like what with Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, and kind of they wanted to be blinded from the limelight. And if, potentially if they weren't going through being famous and always being in the public eye, would things be different today? I'm not going to speculate on that because who the hell knows? But when it comes down to other people listening to it, because like myself, hearing the title Blinded to the Light, I'd be curious to see kind of where the song was going, how it was feeling. And when you're talking about the other way where people are just blinded to the good things that are potentially happening and are focused in such negative realms and areas, whether it be anything going on in politics, anything going on with it socially, whether it's something going on personally where you might be just having a bad time in life, and it seems like everything going around you is bad, and there might be very good aspects in your life as well at the time, but because you're so focused in on the bad, you just can't see them. The fact of the matter is, you're giving so many different potential meanings for people through that song that there's going to be so many people that are going to be able to connect with it on so many different levels that all of a sudden, say I listen to it, and then say my best friend listens to it. We could have two completely different realizations and different connections to that same song. But it's how we emotionally connect to that song could be the exact same. We could love that song equally, but it could be for completely different reasons. And that really lets a lot of people into the track, into the song, and get into the band even more just based off of that.
Yeah, and it goes to the, as I'm in it and as I'm writing, I'm always panicking that I'm being too poetic or too cryptic or too whatever. And then almost every single time I have sort of an aha moment about what the song is about, maybe a month after it's done. Like, I really don't know what these songs are about until they're finished. And then I reread them, having not, like when I'm writing, I'm just writing what the poetry should say. But then I go back and I sort of digest other things, and then I come back to it. And that's the point at which I'm like, oh my God, that's what I'm writing about. And it's hard sometimes because you get a lot of self-doubt when you're wondering, oh, is this too complicated? Is this too cryptic for an audience to get? But as you just said, sometimes the more cryptic a lyric, the more cryptic a message, the more it attaches to more people, because you can have that sort of like multiple interpretations, and yet none of them are wrong,
Exactly. And there's also a time where it's if you went like super duper cryptic, went completely something like Da Vinci Code style stuff, that would definitely be hard to get into. Or on the opposite of it, if you went super duper specific and detailed this event like to it, like basically from detail to detail in a song, again, it's kind of something where people might not necessarily understand it fully due to the fact that if it's super specific, if you didn't go through that exactly the same, you're not going to be able to connect with it as well. But if it's super cryptic, you might not even understand where it's going. But if you have this, it's kind of like the metaphor scale. If your metaphor is like 90% or 10% or anywhere in between, you have a very good chance of making that work for people to understand it. And a good example of that, I would say, is I'm going to use a song that recently came out called Only Money by Day to Remember, where the story is very super specific to Jerry McKinnon losing his grandmother and going through all the emotions of that. And the chorus talking about how he lost out a lot of time with family and friends because of all the work that he was doing and just potentially, focusing too much on that. However, yeah, it's specific, but it's also something that a lot of us can relate to, losing a loved one and wishing we had more time with them. It's specific, but it's not it's not like overly specific where you're including people's names in there or whatnot. But if you went super duper cryptic at the same point too, it could have the same thing. If you give people it's kind of like guide them just a little bit or a lot of it, but don't handhold them through the whole entire thing.
Yeah, well, there's a sliding scale, and for the most part, when I'm working with bands that are just the bands that I work with as a producer, I tend to try and make it as conversational and normal as possible, because I want the average person to relate to the cadence and the actual words as something that they would say themselves. But when it comes to Ra, I sort of don't care. And the idea of creating something that's poetic for the sake of poetry is well within the rules allowed in the project. So for me, it's one of the reasons why I even made this record, is because I spend so much time working within a framework when I'm working with other bands, because I'm either working within their framework or I'm trying to get them to work within a framework because they're not focused enough. But with Ra, there's literally just utter freedom. Like, anything I can think of, as long as I think it's good, is allowed. But obviously it has to be good. But yeah, there's the audience, first of all, I think most bands underestimate the audience. I think a lot of times most people are, I say this even relates to like trying to do a band's music video or trying to do something that requires any level of artistic or technical achievement, right? So in the old days, we, shitty snare, shitty kick drum, it's not going to stop anybody from liking your record. But nowadays, regular, normal kids know how to record and know what should sound like and know when something feels right compared to something that's just not recorded right. And it changes their perception because, in the old days, music was much more organic and performed, and less programmed. And now that everything is so programmed, there's a level of expertise that has to be there. Otherwise, the audience will tune out. So it's the same thing with lyrics. It's the same thing with everything related to music and art. Is if you underestimate the audience will digest it quickly and move on. That's my thing. Like there are certain bands that we all know that have put out essentially the same record for 10 to 15 years, right? Like we know these bands. Every time you hear a new record, you're just sort of like, oh, that's the same record we've heard, but it works because the audience already has an investment into the branding of that particular band. And it's simply sort of it's like saying, you know what? I don't like bananas all the time, but when I'm in the mood for a banana, I want a banana. And that's the thing with those bands. It's like they don't change their flavor enough for it to screw up the fact that people have a taste for it. But I do think it screws up their shelf life. I think that those bands' records don't last a long time. I think when another record comes out that sounds like the last two or three, people listen to it. They might gravitate to a couple of songs, but they cycle that out of their regular listening faster than they would if the band had taken a risk and tried to do something new. I always go back to OK Computer by Radiohead, which was universally completely panned and everybody hated it and everybody complained. And yet now, of course, it's this monumental record that everybody tries to copy and wants to sound like. So there's always that thing where you're disappointing your audience by being different. As long as there's enough credibility and passion and true vision that goes into whatever's new, it should do okay. And you have to be, with the raw stuff, I still keep it. The vocals are there, the guitars are there, the drums are there. It's the same guys from 20 years ago. It's one of those things where there's enough similar pieces that you can put a brand new outfit on it, but it still feels familiar. And that's the thing that, for me makes me excited about this record and makes me excited about doing music going forward, is knowing that when you push the boundaries, a lot of times you do get rewarded.
Oh, absolutely. And even there are times where you push the boundaries, like you said with Radiohead, where all of a sudden you come out with it, you push the boundaries, and it just doesn't get what you think it gets, and it gets universally panned. And all of a sudden, as time goes on, people just start gravitating towards it, and it becomes this fantastic thing. There are plenty of albums that came out in, like, let's say the past 3-4 years that could easily go under that style, where it's initially came out and you're thinking, what the heck was this band even thinking? All of a sudden, go in the future 10 years and it's something that people are talking about. Like you go on like All Press or Loudwire and it's like how this album changed the game for this genre. And it could have been an album that you thought was just not the best. However, over time, opinions do change. People's perception of certain sounds do change. And how people relate to those sounds do change as well. Even for me, there's certain things with hard rock that I don't necessarily connect with as much now as I would have 8-9 years ago, where there's certain things where I wouldn't have connected with, let's say, when I was like 16, 17, where all of a sudden now it's just like 16, 17, I never would have thought of listening to metalcore ever. And now I listen to it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting too, because I think, I was talking to someone about this the other day. It might've been Dustin actually. But the band Architects, so it's like, Architects was like this mathy metally band, and they did all this stuff that was, for the most part, very successful, but also sort of not really mainstream. It's not like they were on the radio all the time. And then they obviously made the conscious decision that they were going to make radio songs. And then they've done that and they've been successful doing that. What's interesting to me, and I mean this with all due respect, is I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided whether I like mathy architects better than radio architects. And the question always comes to me in the form of, did they sacrifice what makes them interesting in order to be commercial? It's not about, to me, sometimes it's not about, for me personally, it's not about, is it better or worse? But is it special is always the thing. Obviously, you can argue that being special makes it better, but they took, it's interesting. I had the same sort of thought when Bring Me the Horizon did the song Medicine, because they have this song Medicine that's on Ammo, I think.
Yep.
And what I thought to myself immediately when I first heard that song is like, I was like, oh, there's a line. And if they go over the line, they become unremarkable, right? So they're unbelievably good at what they do. But if they go too pop, right, there's a line that they cross. If they cross that line, then they're starting to compete with bands like 5 Seconds of Summer and bands that are legitimate pop bands. Well, if you go into that arena, you have to be that cool and that interesting in that arena. And I don't know that they are. I felt like, whoa, if you're going to do a 5 Seconds of Summer song, you have to be as cool as 5 Seconds of Summer. And it didn't seem like they had the elements as Bring Me the Horizon to really compete in that genre, because it sort of watered down what makes Bring Me the Horizon awesome, which is really cool sort of programming and dark vibes and color and pop melodies over dark elements, right? But that Medicine song was so happy that it sort of felt out of character for me personally. And I guess they avoided it because they never did anything like that again. So maybe they learned their lesson. But the thing that I really look at is like sometimes you have to be mindful of, if you have to be very, very aware of what it is that makes your project special and not sacrifice that in order to sort of achieve a goal. Make sure you know what the center of the image is, and then you can sort of dress it any other way. So with the architect stuff, here's what's interesting about it is my initial reaction to the newer radio songs that they're doing is that my initial reaction is I really like this. And then it doesn't hold my interest very long, not because it's not good, but it feels less special than the stuff that they've done in the past that I feel is more far-reaching conceptually. And also, I mean, I think the singer is really good, but I think the singer also, there's an adjustment that goes from being the singer of math architects to being the singer of pop architects. And the popular architect singer, I think, needs to find more color and diversity in his performance in order to sustain radio songs. But obviously they're doing fine. So it's not like a question of, is it working or is it not working? It's working for them clearly. But I'm just giving my opinion based on what feels like a move that I'm like, I wonder if they can sustain this now for 3 albums,
Yeah, and honestly, while you were just talking about that, like there was certain like light bulbs going off in my head, like mind blown moments all within that. It was kind of ridiculous to really think about it. And Sahaj, did I lose you? Oh shoot, did I lose him? I think he froze on us, ladies and gentlemen. See if I can get him back real quick. All right, are you there?
Yeah, I got you, I think.
Yeah, I think he just froze for a little bit. Or maybe something happened with my internet connection. I really don't know, but oh well, no big deal. I'll figure it out. So what I was gonna go with that was like when you're talking about all that stuff with architects, Bring the Horizon, I had certain little like light bulbs, mind explosion moments going off in there because when I listened to For Those That Wish to Exist, there were certain pieces of it that I really did like, but when I looked at it, I thought, this isn't going to be something that hit me the same way that Holy Hell did when I first heard Holy Hell. Because I'll still listen to Holy Hell every now and again, the whole entire way through. That was the first album that really just like really sparked my interest in metalcore, was that. And listening For Those That Wish to Exist, there was definitely more of this commercial side to it. They did have some of those heavier songs in there, like Black Lungs, which I do like. Impermanence, when they had Winston with Parkway Drive featured on there. That was absolutely ridiculous. But there were certain sounds in that I just couldn't necessarily fully get behind personally, because I think it was just something that really made them special, that just kind of was just lacking a little bit in there. I still like the album. I completely respect the move that they made because now they've been without Tom Cyril for about 5 years at this point. And I thought with Holy Hell, they tried to take the style that he wrote in and really give like this full-on tribute to what he had done for the band and talk about going through that whole entire grieving process, which I thought they did absolutely to perfection on that. But I still respect what they did with For Those That Wish to Exist because they ended up going number one in the UK. A metalcore band went number one in the UK. I mean, that's insane. Jumping to the Bring Me the Horizon one, because I did not like Amo at all. And I like what you said about kind of like what made the special in your mind, because that kind of was the same thing that I was thinking. Then they came out with Post-Human Survival Horror in 2020. Listening to the whole entire thing, they brought a lot of it felt like what they learned on Amo with some of those pop sounds and just put it into Post-Human Survival Horror, put some of that heaviness on there, put some more of those darker themes on there, and just went full force for it. And I absolutely love that EP all the way through and through. It was fantastic. But now I'm even thinking about my favorite bands as well and kind of thinking about, okay, over time, do I still really like them? Have they changed? But when they change, did they lose what makes them special? And I think a great example of this would be Rise Against. Because if you look at their earlier work, like Art Revolutions Per Minute or Siren Songs of the Counterculture, it has this heavier, more raw punk rock vibe to it. But you go to some of their newer stuff, it's still punk rock, but I like to call it more polished punk just because it's not as heavy. It's not as in-your-face raw, but it still has that more punk rock feel to it. However, it's the message of the song and the vocals from Tim McElrath where it's more poetic in its own style, but it still hits you with that incredible energy at the same time as well, which is what made Rise Against special in the first place. So when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, they kind of enhanced their sound. They changed their sound up a little bit. It evolved. But what kept them special in the beginning is still keeping them special now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there seems to be, here's an interesting thing that I think COVID has done inadvertently is I think a lot of bands had to stop and reassess the songwriting part of their careers. Because I think what was starting to happen already was a lot of bands were going to the same writers. A lot of bands were being circled around LA and circled around, and we were all doing the same, my buddy on the other side would get the record, and then Howard Benson would get the record, and then John Feldman would get the record, and then I'd get the record, and we'd all be writing for these projects. But what you end up with then is a bunch of familiar songs with different dresses on. And I think artists started to realize during this break, at least I hope they have, is you got to go back to the risky writing style that got you famous in the first place. A lot of the bands that have been around for a long time, I feel like are starting to dive back into the emotional core of how they started out. And I think that that's really important to do. I think that hopefully that becomes, I'm hoping this year, everybody puts out a record that we're all just like, holy crap, we didn't know that could be that good. I know what the next Starset record sounds like. It sounds amazing, and I know what LJ's record is going to sound like. That's going to sound amazing too, completely different universes. But, I know a lot of people are out there and they're battling. I was talking to Doc Coyle from Bad Wolves. Obviously a lot of drama in their camp and a lot of stuff has gone down because Tommy Vex isn't in the band anymore. But I had written a couple of songs, one of which still appears to be a Bad Wolves song. But it's very interesting, man. When people are put against the wall with adversity, you if you have the right heart and the right mentality, it's an inspiration. It inspires you to do more. It inspires you to take risks. It inspires you to sort of stand up and be noticed, as opposed to, I think there are a handful of people, and not, knock on wood, none of the bands I work with, but I've seen people who have sort of let this be the big problem because they're so invested in live and touring and all this stuff and their merch sales, and it's just a big problem. But creating content and being really excited to do it and make it interesting, whether it's just music or music and video content and other things. One of my bands that I'm jumping around, but one of my bands that I work with that I'm actually really proud of is a band called September Morning. And they sort of like lived under the level for a really long time, and then they started really pushing the Instagram and pushing all the stuff. And I got 100,000 people on their Instagram now. It's like a real number. It's like they put up songs and they got playlisted and they got hundreds of thousands of spins early, and those songs will probably go, get over 1 million streams. And that's hard work, man. When you're at that level where not everybody knows who you are, but you got to fight the fight. I mean, that takes a lot of strength and personality to do that. And this COVID stuff has really tested a lot of people. So I don't know. I'm looking at what the year has to offer, and I'm assuming that everybody's going to be making incredible records because that's all they had time to do. So hopefully everything coming out is going to be really, really good, and it's just going to help. I mean, everyone's going to want to go and see these bands at Danny Wimmer festivals or whatever it is.
Yeah, because I'll put it my way. It's just there's so many different festivals that I wanted to go to. I had this whole entire plan last year to go over to Europe just to see as many of the bands I've interviewed for this podcast over there on their own home turf, just because I want to go back over there, one, and two, I've interviewed bands from Russia, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Portugal, all over the place. And I want to hit every single one because one thing I noticed was there's so much good music that's coming out that people just necessarily don't really know about. And it's all that,
right? How can anybody know about it? I mean, it is I had this conversation. There's another conversation I had is bandwidth. Right. So people constantly always talk about the music industry in terms of there are thousands of songs coming out a day. How can you ever break through and get noticed and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, look, the bandwidth for the top artists in the world has not changed. If you really think about it, there's probably 7 to 10. And if you want to stretch it out, maybe 15 super famous musicians at the moment. Like top of the pop charts, top of the world, your Post Malones, your Billie Eilish's, your Jonas Brothers, your whatever you want to call it, whether it's a country artist, whatever it is, there's probably 15 that are really at the top. The Weeknd, Ariana Grande.
Yeah.
There's only 10 to 15. Think about 1975. How many were there? 10 to 15. There's never really more bandwidth for superstars. I'm talking Lady Gaga level superstardom. 10 to 15 people in the world can hold those slots. I don't care how many records come out a day. The world only has enough bandwidth for that many artists. There are people who are incredibly successful and blah, 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 but there's only 10 to 15 people that own it. There's only one Drake. There's only one Travis Scott. There's only one, it's like the second you start, like as soon as you even dip down to like Demi Lovato and Selena Gomez, that's a line down from who I'm talking about. There's only a little bit at that 1%. And everything else that's down there, that's fighting to get noticed, that's the hard part, right? Because you're in this position where, only a handful of people can be at the top. That's just how it works. I like to look at a band like Ginger, right? So like you think about Ginger, and what's funny about Ginger is sort of like, okay, she's the girl, she's sort of hot, she crushes it live, they have incredible energy, the tracks are cool and stuff like that, and they sort of live in their own little domain and they own their lane, but at the end of the day, there's 100 bands that sound like that no one's ever heard.
Exactly. And like even taking a look at the Ginger stats as well, using Spotify monthly listener count, Ginger has 402,000 monthly Spotify listeners. And kind of give everyone a little bit of like a comparison, for Ra at the moment, it was 264,000 when we shot this. And when you think of Ginger as well, for a lot of people, especially that are really into rock and metal, you know who Ginger is, you know who Tatiana is. But I do agree with you. There's a lot of bands that are further below them that have that same sound, have that same vibe, have that same feel that you just don't know are there yet.
Yeah, and and I'm not even saying that there's anything wrong with ginger, but my point is that it's difficult, and maybe they do the same thing, right? Maybe they become an architect and they dump the metally stuff and they write some commercial songs so that they can pay better, buy better cars and have better clothes, But the 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 system is set up, that you have to work really hard to get noticed. And once you get noticed, you pop that social media cherry as in the modern universe, then you can start creating a business model that actually exploits it and makes it work, and you can build on that. But that's the hard part. The hard part isn't the music. And that's the thing that a lot of people have to understand is the music is part of it, but it's about the vision and the branding and the passion that goes into the project as a whole, that translates, that eventually gets sort of funneled into the songs. But the songs are just the branding of this vision, of this feel, of this person. And a lot of people, when they get into the music industry, they just don't think that way. They just don't understand. They think that if they can go on Joey Sturgis's nail the mix thing, that they can make a record that sounds just like Asking Alexandria, and boom, that's it. That's all they need. But the rest of it, that's not how it works. You have to have a singer that's got something that people are drawn to. You have to have songs that are crafted in a way that are psychologically, that are, I go back to Bring Me the Horizon a lot, because Bring Me the Horizon was unremarkable in the beginning. You know what I mean? It's like, why did they evolve into something that was so different, so great? And it's because they did things, they prioritized the right things. Ali, as a writer and as a singer, learned to prioritize the things that he did incredibly effectively. And then, of course, Justin's his name, right? Justin or Jordan? Jordan. So Jordan comes in, and of course there's a sonic stamp that he puts on everything. And the combination of the two creates sort of a brand that they're able to market for 10 years, 12 years, whatever it is. So the system of making music, the process of modern music making has become, weirdly more dependent on artificial elements, but also way more dependent on the authenticity of the person leading the brand. If you think about Post Malone and Billie Eilish and all of these characters that are currently owning the music industry, what they're able to do is magnify the beautiful parts of their personality exponentially. It's not like Post Malone is that interesting. It's not like Billie Eilish is that interesting. It's that they take those tiny little parts of themselves that are interesting and they magnify it. They blow it up multiple times, and they're able to sort of express those moments exclusively when they do their songs, so that you're just constantly in that moment with them. And that's how records sell. You have to get people to indulge your character, your person, they need to want to exist in you in order for it to work. And that's why it's hard for rock bands, because rock's one of those mediums where the energy level tends to be one-sided. It always sent, that's one of the beautiful things for me personally about Ra is that we can go from the heaviest part to literally the most pretty little thing and all this other stuff and do it effectively. Whereas a lot of bands, I think, have a hard time with subtlety. They can be really good loud, and they can be really good aggressive, and they can be really good with punishing sounds, but they have a hard time being convincing when it comes to subtlety and nuance and finesse. So anyway, that's my diatribe on writing and being in a metal band nowadays.
One thing that kind of was picking my brain when I was thinking about this was, you're talking about, again, the bandwidth and just when it comes to artists, when it comes to selling music, growing your band. And it's not just the music, it's also like what you add onto it as well. And it potentially could be something where you could be gigantic in one part of the world, but everywhere else really doesn't know you fully exist. But it could be something that could easily work. Just depends on how people perceive it. And I think a great example of that would be baby metal. You go over to Japan, take a look at some of those live videos. It's absolute pandemonium there. And one of the reasons why I started listening to the band as well, because I did a whole video on if I like them or not. And I was watching music videos. I was thinking, Like the craziness of these live shows, the crazy energy, the crazy moves, and also just how insane this whole entire thing looked. It just drew me into it. And it wasn't even the music that started out. It was just how crazy these live shows looked. And then using all the Japanese culture in there, mixing it with metal. That's a huge selling point right there. And then you look at how the band markets themselves as well, and it has this full-on exclusivity Japanese idol culture thing behind it. And there's a lot of people that can get into it. However, you take a look at their Spotify monthly listener count. Like the last time I looked at it was like 700 or 570,000 monthly listeners, and most of that's over in Japan as well. You look all over across the world, and it's not anywhere near where it is there. But then again,
so in the music industry, what we call that is a novelty act. So there are a bunch of things that are considered novel. Guar is a novelty act, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's like the idea of the reason why it's called a novelty act is because the premise on which it succeeds is not traditional, and the idea of baby metal taking Japanese J-pop and putting heavy riffs to it and double bass and crazy stuff and having these three basically, I mean, they're kids. They may not be kids anymore, but they were.
When they started out, they were.
But it's sort of weird and pervy, honestly. It's like these little girls in skirts dancing and sort of being somewhat sexy, even though they're not supposed to be. But that's the Japanese thing, right? So the schoolgirls, and it's this whole sort of like culture where the songs were good. I actually like baby metal songs. I think "Gimme Chocolate's" an amazing song, but and what was the other one? Karate. I think Karate's incredible. But the reason why that doesn't translate in the things. First of all, you're dealing with music that songs are in Chinese and Japanese, so there's a lyrical disconnect. And then secondly, you're also, no girls are going to really engage. No non-Japanese girls are really going to engage in that band somewhat. So in order to be truly successful, you have to cross the gender barrier. And I think also, the fact that they're not, they're never really mainstream promoted. There's no radio for it. It's always a novelty act. But as a novelty act, it's actually really cool and interesting. I think I like baby metal. I think there's, and there's an enormous amount of precision and effort and rehearsing that they must go through. I mean, they're essentially like a boy band or a girl band, and they're really treated more like J-pop than they are metal. And it's, to me, it's an interesting thing. But yeah, you only, if you're talking about a career that spans years and years and years, and you only have one or two or three good songs, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, or you could be like what you said with Guar as well, with that being more of a novelty act. Where even for myself, I've never gone on to like Spotify or gone out of my way to listen to any of Guar's music. I got a free ticket to see them at the rave here in Milwaukee back in 2019, and went. And I decided after that show, okay, will I probably ever listen to Guar on my own? Like, just if I'm just gonna sit down and listen to it, probably not. If I ever get a chance to go and see them live again, am I going? Absolutely. Their show was absolutely it was so much fun to go to. I mean, I came out of there just like drenched.
By the way, baby metal has almost 1 million monthly listeners.
Oh, then I completely just lost
940,000 monthly listeners. Gimme Chocolate has 30 million streams. Karate has 25 million streams. So they're making a little money.
They're making a little more than
their worst track on their top 10 has almost 3 million streams. So they're not doing too bad.
I thought they were about half of that. Wow.
Yeah, but it is what it is, right? It's just fun.
Yeah, but then also one other thing we've been seeing lately a little bit more with kind of like that, like now it's not like the gimmick, kind of just what's added on top of the music. There are certain acts that are coming out now that are really starting to grow to prominence that have some of those more gimmick styles to them, but it's just kind of what's helping make them a bigger band. But then you listen to the music as well, and sometimes, in my opinion, their music is fantastic, and that gimmick was something that was able to get them realized by the fans in order to really get into that. A good example of that, in my opinion, would be the horror gimmick that Ice Nine Kills uses.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spencer, Spencer is very, very he's conceptual in pretty much everything he does. So there's no real, he doesn't have, his allegiance to horror and film and movies is about as deep and intense as his connection to music is. So I don't think he really prioritizes any of it. For him, Einstein Kills is a sort of like multimedia project, right? As a lot of modern things. I'm still waiting to hear an Einstein Kills song though that I need to listen to like repeatedly. You know, like I don't dislike any of the songs. I just want to hear a song where I'm like, oh my God, this is an amazing song. But even if they don't ever do that, I think they'll still be successful. You know, so it's pretty funny. But talking about what you're talking about and talking about a gimmick that doesn't necessarily work for me, which is interesting, is Sleep Token. So like the Sleep Token thing for me, like when I see Sleep Token, I love that one song, The Offering, I think it's called, and just an unbelievably cool band. And then when I saw that they wear masks and dress like aliens, I was like, oh, that sort of ruined it for me a little bit, because for me, it's so organic and sort of authentic that I just didn't feel it needed a gimmick. You know what I mean? So it felt like the gimmick almost didn't fit the band, but you know, I'm sure there's a reason for it or whatever. Or I think somebody once told me that there's somebody in the band who's not supposed to be in the band and they have a mask. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I that was an interesting moment for me too, because I really loved the song. And then when I saw the band was in masks, I was like, oh, I feel like that was unnecessary. I thought the songs were good enough to stand on their own, you know?
That is interesting because I never really got that big into Sleep Token at all. So I might have to check that out just to see like what a live show looks like, and then see that, and I might have the exact same reaction that you do.
Yeah, I really love that song though. That The Offering song is really good.
And probably right after this, I'm honestly going to go on YouTube and just look that up. Be like, okay, I got to see. Do they come out like these weird masks and like look like aliens or something like that? And then, do you really need to do that?
Sure. But yeah, man. So yeah, so the album's coming out. We're excited about all of that. We're pretty stoked on, you know, all of what's coming up this year. I mean, you know, it's weird to be optimistic, right? Because we're in no way out of the woods, but it just feels good. I don't know. It feels like there's good stuff going to happen for not only us, but I think music in general.
I absolutely think so as well. Just because, again, everyone's been basically with live shows. Everyone's been on the shelf for over a year at this point. And when people are going to want to go out and see live shows right when they come out, but it's what are you going to do to make sure that people are going to make sure that you are the live show that they want to see? You're the live show that they're going to end up remembering for the rest of the year. It's like, this was the best show I saw right after everything opened back up. And it's a huge opportunity for every band out there to grab a share of the music listening community that they might not have right now. It's a huge opportunity just because, okay, people are just looking for new stuff. People are going to be looking for all this stuff. And you have an opportunity to just create something and grab people's attention where, you know, again, we haven't seen live shows in over a year at this point. What happens if someone does something absolutely crazy and then someone takes a video, word gets around? Next thing you know, you could be a band that was selling 200-300 tickets before the pandemic hit. Now you're going to be able to try and sell 2,000-3,000.
Yeah, no, I know. It's crazy. It's going to be cool, though. I'm optimistic. I have no reason to be, but I am definitely optimistic.
And, well, that is honestly refreshing to hear because throughout the past year, everyone's been rather startled, rather pessimistic, and just unsure of everything that's going on. But with a brand new record coming out, again, a live stream performance on March 19th, the day Intercorrupted comes out as well, and looking at Sahaj and looking at just kind of that, there's just a certain aura that's around your face right with the smile. It's just, I can tell you're positive. I can tell you're optimistic. And that positivity and that optimistic feel will just end up potentially radiate into what you do on social media, what you do with the release, what you do with the live stream as well, what you do with everything after that. And then when it comes down to, alrighty, we're getting back to live shows, and you go out and you could potentially go out with, again, bands like Breaking Benjamin, bands like Alter Bridge, bands like Sevendust, whoever else you might be, Shinedown even, you never really know. But all of a sudden, again, it's just constantly that momentum just keeps building and building and building. It's like a snowball going down a hill.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's not a lot of reasons to be super stoked, but I feel super stoked. And maybe it's just because I'm just proud of the record. So I'm hoping everybody who checks this out, checks out the album on March 19th. And, and you can go to rawband.net and figure out all the social media stuff and find us wherever you want to talk. And we always answer our messages and DMs and stuff. So don't be afraid.
Well, if everyone hear that, don't be afraid. Check them out. Message them if you want to. And we'll have all the links for in the description of this podcast so that all you have to do is click, bing, bang, boom, make it as easy as possible to find them on social media, find them online, check out some of their merch. Again, plug in that a little bit as well. And then also make sure you follow them on Spotify. Make sure if you're on Apple Music, give them a follow there. Stream their stuff, pre-save the album, pre-order the album, get your tickets so that you can go and watch the live stream concert. I was going to say virtual live stream. I keep messing them up. Virtual concert on March 19th because, come on, it's a virtual concert and they got a lot of production behind this. Who wouldn't want to check that out?
Yeah, no, it's all really good, man. Thank you again for having me again. This was awesome.
Thanks for being on as well. I always love talking to you. There's certain things that I keep thinking about that I'm not necessarily sure how to put into perspective when I'm even doing some of this stuff. After talking with you, I've got 10 different ideas. I'm like, oh, I never thought of it this way. Oh, wow, I should have thought of it this way. Oh, this is a better way to explain this. I'm just thinking, my God, every time I talk to you, my music IQ has to increase by 20 points.
Awesome. I'll take credit for that. I like that.
Oh, absolutely. You can take credit for that. So on that note, Sahaj, can't say goodbye on this podcast due to the fact that this is the second time talking with you. And when live shows return, I definitely want to see you live, no matter what band you're with. Even if it's just Ra, all the better.
Very good. Awesome, man. Thanks again.
Thanks again. And I got to say it. See you later. Ooh, well, folks, that's my review with Sahaj from Ra. And God, every time I talk to Sahaj, my musical IQ has to increase by 20 points. It is amazing talking to this man. So everybody, please, if you can, not if you can, you must now, make sure you go to the description of the podcast in the Find Ra online section. Follow them on Facebook, throw them a follow on Twitter, follow them on Instagram, subscribe to them on YouTube, go to their website, check out some merch. Pre-save the album if you're streaming Spotify, Apple Music. If you're going to pre-order the album, again, go do that right now. When it comes out on March 19th, you'll be ready. Also, be sure to check out their virtual concert on March 19th as well. It's going to be incredible. Will I be there? I'm going to make sure as all hell that I find a way to do it. So on that note, that's going to be for me today, guys. Thank you for watching and listening to the Chord Progression podcast, which City rocks and rock and I'll thrive. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single episode with a big, healthy, and hearty see ya! Yeah!